morning.
Way too much mercury is still going into the South River every year. The former DuPont textile plant in Waynesboro discharged mercury waste from 1929 to 1950. A federal report says mercury from the plant washed into the South River and subsequently contaminated the South Fork Shenandoah River, the Shenandoah River, and the floodplains along the three rivers. The report says riverbank and floodplain soils are the major source of mercury in fish in those three rivers. And joining us now live from Waynesboro to discuss the report is Waynesboro City Manager Mike Hamp. Mike, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, currently, Mike, the report says about 416 pounds of mercury get into the South River per year. To meet safety standards in fish for human consumption, mercury loads to the South River cannot exceed 4 pounds per year. That's a huge amount above where we should be. Can't be good news, I guess, for the South River.
Well, it's not necessarily good news for our community adjacent to the South River. I think our responsibility as community leaders is to receive information of this nature, be good stewards of the environment, and communicate the information as appropriate to our constituents and our residents.
What's your reaction to the report?
My reaction is that most stakeholders and community residents and decision makers have been generally aware of the study and the information, the subject matter of the study, and to a certain extent, the broader message is not surprising news. I think, as you alluded to, as we approach finalization of the study and finalization of the data, perhaps the scientific quantification of the magnitude of the problem may strike some of us as a surprise.
Now, how exactly would you say this impacts the city? Because you've been dealing with the mercury issue for a while. This kind of, I guess, at least tells you more specifics about where it's coming from.
Well, I think as municipal leaders, elected and appointed, and staff, our chief concern in a matter of this nature lies in a public safety message, making sure that our visitors and our residents understand how this information and how the condition of the river might impact them in the course of their lives here in the community. To a certain extent, regulatory efforts and remediation efforts and opportunities lie in other governmental agencies and in the private sector. So our duty remains largely in making sure that our constituents and our visitors are aware of the conditions surrounding the river.
Does this complicate efforts to redevelop properties along the river? The new development that's titled the Mill at South River comes to mind. So you want to be redeveloping along the river. Doesn't this complicate things?
Well, our experience thus far is that it has not. And we have not been advised by any other regulatory agencies or entities that we should expect otherwise. But we certainly will be attuned to that potential message. And as you alluded to, in our community, redevelopment, and particularly in the downtown or areas around the river, are of key interest to us.
Would you say overall has the mercury problem been a public relations black eye for the city?
You know, I think many of our longtime residents and constituents have been aware generally of the issue of mercury and the legacy that it represents. And I think to a certain extent we understand and accept that. It's not been my experience that the issue is of concern to or has a negative impact on our tourism industry or our attempts to invite people into our community. And really, I think we tend to be responsible and reasonable residents and embrace both the positive and less positive elements that the river presents for our community.
All right, very good. Well, Mike Hamp, the city manager for the city of Waynesboro, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Bob.
And now let's send it to Mel.